friend, and welcome to your Reiki session. So I often receive questions about the best thing to do for healing past trauma. I grew up in a very turbulent household, and I actually think that rather than one or two actions, there are a series of steps you can take to heal trauma. And these are all part of an amazing healing technique called self-parenting. We use a little bit of this lavender and tea tree aura mist just on my hands and a little bit at your heart space. The most important thing to note is that the path to all of your healing is available to you right here, right now, because it's within you. Oh, that smells heavenly. I love it. So throughout this session, I will use different energetic tools and different techniques to really help you, support you on this path to healing. We have a new blanket and it's so freaking soft. It's heavenly. I'm really excited. It's the softest blanket that I've ever felt in my whole entire life. Oh my gosh. It's like, kind of goes along with some of the techniques that we'll talk about in terms of like emotional regulation and just self-soothing, but having something this soft that you can just kind of, stroke while you're moving through challenging emotions. It's lovely. So let's begin by lighting our candle and setting our intention for this session. Palo Santo is great for clearing, and this is a natural coconut wax apothecary kit. Okay, my darling, if you'd like to light a candle right now, it could be really, really nice just to engage deeper in this connection. Okay, let's take a deep breath here together. Breathwork is an amazing way of just engaging in some supportive, nurturing self-parenting. So on behalf of your highest, wisest, most empowered, most aligned self, in loving comfort and in perfect balance, I wish to conduct this Reiki session for helping and supporting you as you discover the empowering techniques of self-parenting. If you'd like to set your own intention based on what you've moved through in the past or what you're moving through now, I'll leave this flame open for you to do so. I'm going to come through the selenite wand, just hit my singing bowl, to do a little bit of further clearing. If you miss supportive, nurturing care during your childhood, self-parenting can help provide you that guidance and compassion for yourself. It can, help to foster emotional balance and personal development. And Reiki is amazing to pair with this practice, as so much of this work delves into deep healing that can be challenging. And the best way to combat that activated fight, flight response is to soothe our parasympathetic nervous system. And studies have shown that Reiki effectively does just that. Just release anything that comes up here. So the first step that we can take in self-parenting is self-compassion. I think we can break this down into 4 different steps. Curiosity, acceptance, forgiveness, and finally compassion. So starting off, I'm just going to do a little bit of energetic clearing in the throat space. Get curious about all of those, just casting that into the flame, all of those unhealed spaces. It can be quite easy to recognize the areas that you still need to heal. So if you become easily activated, easily triggered, or scared, if you react really strongly to things, or maybe you freeze, or maybe you find yourself wanting to escape, then those are areas that you know need to be tended to. So really get curious about that. I'm going to do a little bit of clearing in the heart space now. The next step is acceptance. So we can then start to accept how we are. So maybe you're recognizing through that curiosity how you respond to things. So when we're curious rather than being reactive, we can start to develop practices to get into a calmer state. Once we're in that, calmer state, and we don't feel so terrified and reactive, we can start to look outside of ourselves and start to see, oh, we're all human, and all of us make mistakes. So it's vital that you accept that you're just human, that you will make mistakes, and that is perfectly natural, perfectly natural. It's perfectly natural to be imperfect as part of being human. So then we have forgiveness. So once you accept, then it's time to forgive. Forgiveness is so powerful. A few other stones I'm going to start to place. But with self-parenting, I think it's very important to forgive ourselves first. To look deep within yourself at all of the slip-ups, all of the mistakes, and then choose to forgive yourself. Understanding that holding on to that burden of perceived failure like a cross, it won't prevent you from messing up. More often than not, it will actually just induce shame and a crippling fear of vulnerability that can prevent you from ever really putting yourself out there or trying things that are unfamiliar. I've lived in that space for so much of my life. And it was really under the guise of, well, if I forgive myself, then I'm letting myself off the hook, and then I'll just keep messing up. But that, I hate to say perfectionist mentality, even though I know that that's what it is, you know, in the literature and stuff, they talk about it being perfectionism. But I could never identify with that or connect with it because I was always I want to just see that these candles are still going. I never saw myself as perfect. And when I was engaging in those kinds of shaming behaviors or listening to that inner bully that was telling me, like, that was ridiculing me every time that I would mess up, it wasn't perfectionism. It wasn't perfection that I was after. It was like safety. I just didn't want to feel, I wanted to do enough so that I wouldn't be mocked or ridiculed, but not too much that I would stand out. So for so much of my life, that's the area that I wanted to sort of exist in. And I realized that the voice, and it can be different for everybody, but for me personally, based on, you know, how I grew up and stuff, was a very like shaming, ridiculing voice. Anytime I would mess up, oh, they're dripping wax. Let's just make sure it doesn't get on you. I think you'll be good. Yeah, you're like a foot away from it, but let me know. They're really pretty. I got this from a friend. Anyway, I know everybody's inner bully is different, but yeah, based on how I grew up, mine was very like, any stumbling or stuttering of words or things like that, or if I did something wrong, it's like very, like you're gonna be mocked and ridiculed kind of thing. So I think it's just important to recognize that and recognize what it sounds like to you, and then just start to really forgive yourself and recognize that forgiving yourself isn't like letting yourself off the hook. It's really just about practicing self-compassion. I think when we do that, we actually open up so many avenues. Like I'm so much happier, kinder, more open now than I was when I was holding on to those shaming beliefs. Anyway, I'm gonna place a rose quartz for this last one, which is compassion. This is a wonderful stone for this kind of self-parenting, so soothing. And I love this stone in particular because it's a polished, round stone, and it's a great one for, it's not a palm stone, but it's great for just holding the palm of your hand, moving like that, very soothing. So I'm going to place this at your heart space, your Anahata chakra. Anahata chakra. There we go. Beautiful. So try to practice self-compassion. And when those shaming thoughts try to surface and tell you maybe that you're worthless, tell you that you're not doing a good job, that it's, you know, you don't have any inherent value, practice introducing maybe mantras or affirmations to help you understand your inherent value. Because you can strive to be better and a better version of yourself and still love yourself just as you are. These two things are not mutually exclusive. In fact, I think that in order to change your life, starting from a place of love is really the most effective course from my perspective. So I have this carnelian, and I'm going to place this just beneath your navel on your sacral chakra, Svadhisthana chakra. And I want to invite in a very nurturing energy. This self-parenting is all about learning how to self-nurture, comfort. And this next step is all about emotional regulation. And the first part of that is self-soothing. So this carnelian stone is great to support that self-soothing. So when strong emotions surface, try to identify them. In her book, Atlas of the Heart, Brene Brown, it shows us how illiterate we are when it comes to our emotions. In a study, people could only identify something like 3 emotions: anger, sadness, and happiness. But there are so many emotions. So try to get really clear about what it is that you're feeling. I'm going to come through with a little bit of incense. Throughout the session, if you just want to run your hand along the blanket. So soft. So nice. It's one of those that you can draw lines in, because the hair goes in one direction. It's obviously not real hair, real fur, but goes in one direction and then the other. So it's like, you know what I mean? You can like draw things. Oh, it's very, very nice. Very soothing. Let's light this off of our candle. So we're going to use this holy basil. I think that's what this incense is. Just to do a bit of clearing, okay? So when you're doing this kind of emotional regulation work, especially if you're in an activated state, try your best not to hook your identification of the emotion to a thought or a story about what you're feeling or going through. I mean, you can parse through that later if it's necessary, but right now, when you're in that activated state, the most important thing to do is to just move through the feeling and regulate your emotional body. Emotional body is part of your aura, part of your auric field. Doing a little bit of clearing in that space. So once you have identified the emotion, you can ask yourself what your body needs to process it. Once you practice this often, the conversation between body and mind will become more fluent, and you'll be able to read quite quickly what it is that you need. So at the beginning, it might be kind of hard, like, oh, what do I need right now? What do I need right now? Oh, I don't know, and then you could, if you haven't sort of developed healthy coping mechanisms, you could be a little confused. Your body could be telling you that you want something that you've decided you don't want. So it's just about practice and kind of when you're in a more aligned state, making decisions and setting boundaries, which we'll talk about in a minute, setting boundaries around what you are going to allow yourself to engage in and what you aren't. Another thing you could do is to try somatic release, which is a technique of releasing tension from the body. Very often I start with moving my body, just get things moving, get things flowing. When I sit in that tension or that stress or that big emotion, it can throw off my whole nervous system, because there can be so much like vibration in that activated state that when we remain still, it just goes wild, which makes sense because the purpose of that reaction when our brains and nervous systems were developing and evolving is to help energize us for perceived threats, for escaping danger, like predators or invaders. Our blood would pump faster, more rapidly, and we could run faster in that, stress-induced state. So a good walk, even if it's just around your house or your apartment, that can be really helpful. I like going outside because I think the change of scenery, helps to support that shift in energy. Going from that fight, flight to a less reactive, more responsive state. Going from an active state to a more calm state, that's a big shift. So I like to engage in healthy external measures for added support. And if you shift your body and your physical placement, that can really help support the mental shift. And if you want to place your mental attention elsewhere, it can be helpful to physically place yourself somewhere else as well. But for somatic release, you could jump up and down, or you could use like a rattle or a fan, or you could engage in some humming. You might not want to be humming if you're really like filled with rage. Humming might not feel nice, but if you're feeling really sad, you could, humming can be helpful just to get that vibration out, just to kind of purge your body of that vibration. You could push against a wall, kind of lean your body up against a wall and just push up against it, but also crying, shaking your body, mouth sounds, like this can all be helpful. Let's use our rattle here. Just a moment, I'm just gonna quickly draw the symbols outside of your heart space. This looks like pistachio colored. I love pistachios. I call them spidachios. Spidachios. I love pistachio ice cream. Pistachio ice cream. An old roommate of mine introduced it to me, like when I was 19 or something, and it was like, wow, this is amazing. Like creamy pistachio ice cream. Okay, let me draw the symbols. Use this just to shake up your energy and move it down and through. I want to thank you all so much. Those of you who are taking my course to learn how to be Reiki practitioners. That has just been such a joy for me to be able to connect with you in that way and to share these teachings. And I'm just so proud of all of you. It's amazing. So it is closed, the course, to on a select group of students, and it's just been lovely. But I'm going to be opening up a Reiki level 2 soon, so if you are interested in learning Reiki and you have your Reiki level 1, I'll leave that information down below. But it's just been amazing. Thank you so much to all of you who are doing it with me. It's been so amazing to connect with you. Thank you. I love you. And this kind of work, is so supportive of all that. The self-parenting goes so well. It's like such a beautiful pairing, as I said, for Reiki healing. So it's wonderful just to be able to use both to support and lean on. Like a beautiful sacred triangle. Okay, so I'm going to use this to just shake up your energy. So the next thing I want to talk about is boundaries. I had to mention boundaries for this session. I talk about boundaries a lot on this channel, and boundaries are such an important part of parenting and self-parenting. Self-parenting is no different. Developing boundaries for yourself and for others can be so powerful. knowing when to say no. Overbooking or overexerting yourself, it's kind of a form of self-betrayal and self-sabotage, and it shows a real lack of self-worth. I mean, if you don't believe that your needs are as important as others, you will always pour from an empty cup. My therapist says, when you're a people pleaser, when you're people pleasing, no one's ever pleased. I love that. So I'm going to place a few more stones. I have this tiger's eye. For really knowing your self-worth, understanding your value, I'm going to place that on your solar plexus. And then bloodstone. This is a wonderful stone for benevolence. So you're kind of that benevolent overseer, taking care of yourself, nurturing yourself. Just place that right above the tiger's eye. Setting boundaries with yourself is also very effective. This is what I was talking about before. Let's say I want to improve part of my life, like this part of my life. Maybe it's your physical health. I'm going to place my hands on your solar plexus here. So let's say you want to walk every day, but on the first day of the second week, let's say, you can't do it. You're busy and you're not able to do it. And then on the second day of that week, you're not really in the mood because you didn't do it the day before. And then you end up giving up on yourself altogether. Well, boundaries can help you. You can develop a boundary in that situation that says, well, my goal is to walk every day. I understand that I might miss a day or two, but when that happens, I won't give up on myself. I will always walk on the third day, even if it's just for 10 minutes. I set a boundary not to give up on my goal because there's a reason that I set it. Because I want to feel better. Because I want to be healthier and get more movement in my body. And I know I feel better when I do it. But it's so much more important to do it badly than not to do it at all. Anything that's worth doing is worth doing badly. I think G.K. Chesterton said that. So the last step here, we can use this bloodstone and this tiger's eye to support is all about encouragement and motivation. So with that in mind, trying to learn self-motivation in the way that you might have missed from not having a nurturing parent can be really helpful. I'm placing my hands just on the roots here in the base chakra, kind of on the outside of your hips. You can also remember to tap into awareness within yourself and recognize what you're capable of right now. So when you're setting these goals or deciding what you want to shift in your life, rather than trying to change everything about yourself overnight, which I think tends to stem from dissatisfaction with ourselves or self-loathing, really, you could instead choose something small and actionable so that it's easy to measure and achieve. Small sustainable steps that can really help build the esteem you have with yourself. It can help to foster a healthy self-reputation. So just grounding you here. Now connecting the root chakra to the sacral, Muladhara and Svadhisthana. So it's all about the earthly connection, grounding you, helping you feel secure and safe. Such an important part of self-parenting. As is self-care. So self-care is another step in this process. Sometimes all we need is a good night's sleep to help us cope better with the stressors of life. When I'm going through bouts of insomnia, my emotions are like a raw nerve. I feel exposed and really vulnerable and super sensitive. And it's in those moments where a self-care break of like 15 minutes up to a day, if you can manage it, can be so amazing. I know that's not always possible, but even just taking a bathroom break for a few deep, rejuvenating breaths can be amazing. And when we do that, we are prioritizing ourselves, and our body starts to trust that we're going to take care of ourselves. So this healing in the root chakra is really about helping us to understand and ground in the fact that we're there for ourselves, that we're going to nurture ourselves, that we're stepping up to the plate. Because while it's, very sad that you didn't receive the kind of care that you should have when you were a child, very likely your parents, if they were there and neglectful, they just didn't learn that themselves, and then they never learned how to self-parent, So it is cyclical. The whole thing is it's very sad. So it can be very tragic, but also, it's so important that rather than sit in that, I hope this doesn't sound disempowering, but in that victim mentality of feeling like you're at the whim of your trauma kind of thing, it can be really powerful to take the reins and start to say, you know what? It's not my fault, but this healing is my responsibility, and I want to be happy, and I want to be secure. I want to build my self-esteem, my reputation with myself. I want to nurture myself so that I can engage in and have trusting, amazing relationships with others, and so I don't get so defensive maybe, or whatever it is that your trigger kind of introduces for you. So that's amazing. Let's take a few deep rejuvenating breaths here now. Just really doing some deep healing in the root. So rest, deep breathing, taking time, which requires patience, eating nutritious food, moving your body, getting out in nature, speaking with loved ones, supportive friends. These can all be wonderful compliments. Wonderful, wonderful compliments to your inner work. And lastly, communication with your inner child. That can be so helpful. So if you are craving validation and comfort, you could really do some inner child healing. I have a few video resources on my channel for inner child work, but just take some time to connect with that child who was wounded in the past. You could often ask yourself what age the emotion feels like, that triggering emotion. What age does it feel like? How old is it? And then you could visualize yourself at that age and see if you can send nurturing, comforting love to that child, or, even if it's like your teenage self, maybe. So speaking to a therapist to help navigate inner child healing can be amazing, and they can really help guide you through the processing of those past experiences. But if you're doing this work alone, then simply nurturing that past self can be an amazingly therapeutic experience. And I think it can be really helpful. I spoke to somebody about this who shared this as a practice, that when you have a photograph of your younger self, when you're trying to work on limiting or reducing that shame, that can be really, really helpful. I have a painting here of myself when I was younger, which might feel a little narcissistic, but when my mom passed away, she had it, and so I inherited it from her, and I brought it out because I wanted to just sort of share that with you, that sense of like when you look at yourself when you're young, oh my gosh, I think it helps us to connect with releasing that shame voice. I'll show you that. So this is the painting. mean, he was like he was our neighbor. He was like super talented. Big cheeks. I still have big cheeks. But yeah, it's hard for me when I'm really being critical of myself. I think it's important to, I won't always bring this up, but I have a couple of pictures of myself when I'm young, and if I'm being super critical of myself, I look at this painting or a picture of me and I just say, I would never say these things I'm thinking to that child. So why am I saying it to that adult? To that child grown up. So anyway. Still have like what's it called? Deep set eyes, big brow. The path of self-parenting is ongoing. It will ask you to practice awareness and reflect on what you're moving through, as well as to set an intentional course to tread, where you are kind of constantly tending to what you need, to setting boundaries to ensure that you receive those needs that you've set. Continuous process of self-awareness, self-reflection, intentional actions aimed at nurturing your emotional, psychological, physical, spiritual well-being. And if you lacked proper support during your formative years, self-parenting is such an invaluable practice. You are divine. You are connected. You are expressive. You are so loved by yourself, by me, by each other here. You are strong. You are emotionally balanced. You are safe. Oh, I hope this helps. I'm sending you so much love and support on your healing journey. Take really good care of yourself. Take good care of each other, okay? I'll see you here every Wednesday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. So you can do the math for your own time zone. But I love you so much. Have a beautiful rest of your day or your night. And until we meet again, just be so well, okay? Namaste.